there's a lot of Southwestern books. But, it's all one big picture. It really is. Someone could live on the other side of the world, I feel like, from the American Southwest, which is the Indian Ocean, by the way. I looked up, you can look up what your antipode is online. There's specific websites for it. Albuquerque's was the Indian Ocean, just out in the water. So that 2005 tsunami, that was exactly halfway around the world where it was. We still were like seeing those new numbers every day in the print newspaper, And it was sad and staggering. That was like a globally experienced tragedy, but Arizona place names. I looked at this book before in a place names video, but I love a place names guide. I would like one for all of the Four Corners states, but I don't have one for Colorado. This one's great. I love how it's organized by counties. This is a facsimile of a pretty historic edition, so it's close to some now bygone info sources. Love it. Could go off. Travel in Arizona, definitely get yourself a copy of Will Barnes' Arizona Place Names. Also, this is revised and enlarged by Bird H. Granger, who, good job, because it's great. Here's The Worst Hard Time. That's a good one. This really reinvigorated people's interest in the Dust Bowl and learning about the Dust Bowl. One like what the Pulitzer. It has a cool semi-translucent dust jacket. Oh, now that's even cooler. Oh, wow. Love that. That's those full-color Kodachrome photos from Pie Town, New Mexico. I have a book of those. That's totally drawn from that. There it is. This is a great book that I'm really glad I own. Full-color photos. 1939 to 1943. Not an era you typically see in full color. Wow. I've kind of had moments with these images. What is a book, Can a book just be a collection of images? Because that's what this is. I want to write an essay that has words included in the photos and tells a story. There's only photos. Yeah. I like the avant-garde. I like all the experiments. But it's so cool. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've had moments with this book. I've experienced the collapse of time. And if that's not from those same Pie Town batches of photos, it's certainly from that era and probably on similar film. Sure evoked it for me right away. Look at this, I still got little tabs in here. Because I wrote a few articles about the Dust Bowl. I read about it really deeply for a while. And a big one on Black Sunday for New Mexico Magazine. That was a good one. Promoted it on a Santa Fe podcast, I remember, radio show. Interviewed by Emily Drabansky, my editor. And she went on to have a very interesting career. I'm trying to remember. Prismo, of course, turned to a life of crime, but then turned away. So we're all proud of her. But this is cool. Some of the Dust Bowl was in eastern New Mexico. And these little towns like Roy and Clayton. Ain't much up there. But they were able to have poor farming practices that ripped up all the sod. And really that whole, the Dust Bowl is entirely human created. Well, it's nature responding to humans' bad use of the land. This is good. And I actually do think this probably is the best inroad to reading about the Dust Bowl. It's a very accessible read. I think I had one that I really liked for its different details. There was another one when I was diving into the topic. It was cool. I got to talk to a lot of Dust Bowl survivors, interview them. Their stories of Black Sunday. Get a sense of who they were. And I don't know. History's awesome. To me, it's so, alive sometimes. I kind of think it's funny that the earth, just destroyed the bad farming practices, like, they brought in all these steel plows on the railroad via Sears catalogs, and they tore up all that deep topsoil that had created such a vibrant ecosystem, and it held down the soil, and suddenly it was free to form giant clouds as the wind swept unhindered over everything. I'm sure some future generation will find us getting our comeuppance from climate change somewhat humorous. They'll say they were in their find out era. That show Blackadder has a good comedic sensibility about the cycles of history. Yeah, I guess the Soviet Union had one in the 50s in Ukraine. Yeah, I feel like the Dust Bowl is another one of those kind of forgotten, neglected, suppressed historical events, not talked about enough. The fact that we learned bipartisan lessons about land management after that. Nobody wants nasty dust storms. One person I talked to said that in Albuquerque they would put a plate upside down on top of their food every time they ate because it was all so gritty all the time. It's kind of how it was on Lake Powell when I was living along the shoreline of Lake Powell for 7 months. Not all the time, but there were crazy sandstorms, and there was what they called the Lake Powell crunch. They could get in every single bite of everything. Okay, now interesting. So I don't have a poetry section at the moment. Maybe I should. I used to. But, so it's just woven throughout the collection. Here's some poetry. I think Jimmy Santiago Baca is an Albuquerque treasure. I've never met this guy, but what a great poet. Oh my gosh. You can literally, oh my gosh, and oh my God, both. But I think you can read most of his poems and get drawn into them. Very good poet, and happens to write in a hyper-local way about Albuquerque. He's literally written in the northbound about the Eubank northbound traffic after 5 o'clock when the base empties out. I'm like, I've been stuck in that. When I used to work at the New Mexico School for the Blind down there, couldn't believe how rude those base drivers were. But he's real good. I really like this collection too. I especially like one poem in particular in here, Shadows. I think I heard this guy was kind of, I don't know, whispered about in Me Too conversations. There was something specific about him, a moment on Twitter. I was disappointed to hear that because I really like this one poem in here. I don't know. Something to, yeah, I'm not making that up. But I think those poems show great sensitivity and they're very good. The Captivity of the Oatman Girls. Oh yeah, the Oatmans are so interesting. So are captivity narratives. They're a big part of the early stories told in our country, America. Especially the Viking cats of yore like to tell these tales. Oatman, Arizona is such an interesting town. This rough little mining town turned tourist spot in these rugged desert rock mountains. Passed through there a couple times, maybe a few times, and it's great. Donkeys abound, the descendants of prospectors' donkeys, mules, you know. But the Oatmans, wow. Captivity of the Oatman Girls among the Apache and Mojave Indians. Lorenzo D. Oatman and Olive A. Dover's so great. What a wonderful publisher. Keeping things alive. It's simple and a real sturdy binding. Look, this is from 1935. Original title page of the 1935 edition. Yeah, that's way Art Deco. I love it. Column like. What makes that font distinctive? It's clean. It's almost Puritanesque, especially with the larger, the smaller. There's an urgency to the font. Books are cool. You know, man, they'll make books about anything. Not true stuff. That's true. Colorado. That's cool. Who wouldn't want to know the story of Colorado? Oh, the Oatman Massacre. How many books on the Oatmans do I have? There were some in a previous video too. I know, yeah, there was a book on Oatman, Arizona. I don't see it now. If I'm going insane, and some of the books I think are in my collection are just totally imaginary. They just don't exist on this plane. Just took some books off this part of the nonfiction case because I realized these are totally Southwestern. Right there. I guess I forgot there was a massacre. But yeah, she got tattooed while living with them. They both did, I think. Wide World of Maps bookstore. Maybe my dad went there. Likely. Maybe I got this when I cleaned out his apartment. Yeah. Okay, so I last looked at this little book in Colorado. But I'm thinking, yes, Lewis and Clark went through Idaho. But that's not the Southwest, that's the Intermountain West. This section is more the Southwest, which I would say is the Four Corners states, Nevada, and Oklahoma. So Oklahoma is unique because it's also kind of part of the South. I spent last summer with someone from Oklahoma and learned a lot about Oklahoma. I actually think I should take both Meriwether Lewis books out of the Southwest section. They're more just general West. Well, it kind of is a West section. I'll allow it, to quote Judge Judy. For now. Apache Wars. Longest war in American history. So far, Mickey Free, the only man Geronimo ever feared. This book's cover was ripped. Oh, quite a pretty book, I like it. About a dark topic. This one's a classic. Irving Stone, what an interesting, eclectic person he must have been. His wife, too. She was a big part of a lot of his projects. Probably should have got more credit. It's a great cover. Hardback. Men to Match by Mountains. I'm sure it leans into the myth of the West, of course. But I mean, Irving Stone wrote about Van Gogh. He wrote about Michelangelo. He wrote about Darwin. Here he writes about the opening of the Far West. 1840 to 1900. Interesting. I was meant to read this. I think I've started it. Yeah, I read it. I have eras that are just blurs of scholarship, you know. Utah place names. What am I not getting about this cover? Is this Utah? Is this taking the shape of Utah because of putting the name there? Do these dots represent something on a map? Towns? And so why not shape it exactly like Utah? Yeah. Why do you haunt my dreams, John C. Cox? So you frighten me, quite honestly. You stare into my very soul. John W. Van Cott. Yeah. Can't be the only one that hears that. Bow down before me. No, but seriously. University of Utah Press is good. College Press. And you gotta love a place names book. See the video called Place Names Books for more about these place names books. And you'll be educated. You won't be walking around ignorant about these books, you know, like a fool. Or don't. That's fine. Also, this YouTube channel is a weird experiment. I can't quit now. Sunken costs argument. The money and the power, the making of Las Vegas and its hold on America. Sally Denton was a professor of mine, became a friend, very cool, awesome person. She used to party with Christopher Hitchens. That's crazy. She was a well-connected journalist before she was a historian. It was a great book. I thought it was going to be adapted into like an FX show at some point, as was another book of hers. So much dies in development. My older brother, who is a YA fantasy author, over at Sky. So cute. You're so cute. It has such a good-natured little face. Also Oprah Sky. Yeah, I really want these books out of the closet. I'll have to figure out something I could get another shelf case. And ends my almost 20-year-old daughter. When she's done with this German language camp, she'll be staying here for a couple of months before becoming an exchange student. Sweet Pea is her cat. Sweet Pea's all, I belong to no one. Anyway, Rob has had his books optioned many times, his YA fantasy books optioned many times. However, the options have always expired. But he makes money from it just getting optioned when that happens, so that's cool. Particularly his book 11 Thumps and the Gateway to Fu. Someone should adapt the Pillage trilogy. That's like my favorite of his. Anyway, yeah. I think she wrote this with her then husband. She's great. Sally Dent is one of the great modern narrative prose stylists for historical stuff, you know. Put that on a plaque. Up with like Simon Winchester and Hampton Sides and writers like Oliver Sacks. This book is so great. This book could be anywhere in the collection. I love it. This book is literature. The Desert Year. Never has a blurb on a book been truer than this quote here. As Paul Horgan commented in the New York Times, with Mr. Crouch, we make a journey into two places. One is the desert itself. The other is his civilized and charming mind. Yeah. Together they make a country where many readers will be very content. Yeah, it's really a great description of desert life and what's going on and paying attention. Sorts of cool big thoughts you can think if you're just being at one with the natural world. Definitely a top 10 nature writing book for me. I love The Desert Year by Joseph Wood Crouch. I always say the best ideas are genres or could be genres. And yeah, this is just basically Walden, or Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, or Desert Solitaire, or any number of excellent books of just observation. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's cool. Annie Dillard was living in suburban Roanoke when she wrote Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. She just left out in her description the nearby suburbia. She paid attention to the creek and the weeds. The life minimized the rest. You know, beautiful pop art. Objet d'art, artifact, masterpiece of isness. Okay, that's awesome too. I once gave one of those to a Japanese baseball team I gave a ride to. We weren't communicating very well, but I've always wondered if that would ever turn up in an interview. They were all dragging a bunch of stuff along a busy road. That was years ago. Oh. Roadrunners. I was just talking about Roadrunners with my daughter Willow. We were both like, that's a great animal, right? Yeah, totally. And the ones at Arroyo del Oso Park in Albuquerque are really friendly, and you can feed them fries. They make hilarious nests. I saw one that was just 4 sticks in a square on the windowsill of the San Volcano Historical Society. Quail. Crazy how they explode out of the underbrush. Huh, they're so cool looking. I guess they were an important food staple for early folk. I read this book. I love this quote. This book. I block quoted from it in my Arizona essay, I believe. There's an Edward Abbey book where he interviews Joseph Wood Crouch in it. And Abbey exalted him as a high-minded writer. Crouch edited an edition of Walden that I have. This one. Edited and introduced by Joseph Wood Crouch. 3 beautiful copies of Walden in paperback. I'm just going to keep getting different good versions of it. I mean, come on. What? This is a pretty beautiful book. It's a design scheme of a vintage trailer in the Southwest. Bye to a River, a narrative. Beautiful paperback. I bet this will be a moving book. River stories really get to me. Philip Fradkin's A River No More. I really struggled to finish that book because it was like physically paining me. Because he just like paints this picture of this beautiful river, living thing. And then shows its various sections being killed by its exploitation. I always thought it'd be cool to do a really long river trip. I circumnavigated a reservoir. That was also very cool. It was a flooded river, so interesting. Yeah, this looks good. That could be in a memoir section, probably. Maybe. It's kind of a piece of travel writing, too. But it's so subject-based, I would keep it out of memoir. That's why it's over here, I guess. Why is it in the Southwest section? Where is this river? Texas. Yeah, I was wondering about Texas. Is Texas part of the Southwest? Yeah, kind of. But it's also kind of the South. Like Oklahoma, I guess. Of course, Texas is its own thing. When I saw that movie Lone Star by John Sayles, I was like, whoa. I thought I knew about Western history. Texas has this whole other set of history. The movie has a lot of history in it. Here's a beautiful old book. And I love the writings and speeches and lives of the chiefs of North America. It's often really beautiful, moving, affecting stuff, and it's always of historic value too, of course. This is from University of Nebraska Press. Pretty classic. Cover designed by Betty Sealer. Yeah, seems tasteful. Being the life story of a holy man of the Ogallis, yeah. It's told through John G. Nehart, Flaming Rainbow. Oh, I love owning books like this. I'm so glad to have this. 1961. I think I listened to an audiobook about Black Elk, and I was like, more, please. You know, when I was a kid in second grade, I was at the American International School in Vienna, Austria. Maybe, well, definitely at the same time, but I don't know about the same school as Marjam Satrapi from Persepolis. She describes a school much like the one I went to. I was in Vienna for exactly the same period of time that I was. Wild, because I love Persepolis. It's a 1961 edition. Copyright 1932. Huh. What is good in this book is given back to the 6 grandfathers and to the great men of my people. Huh. Well, I love everything about how this book looks, is, etc. I really want to read it. Like, there's so many reasons to own a good book, to have it in your collection. Like, I know I'll definitely go on a binge reading on one of the subjects that this book touches on. Lives of the Chiefs would be a great reading year, honestly. Because many of them have recorded, like, oral history style autobiographies. I love Geronimo's autobiography. The Unbroken Past of the American West, Legacy of Conquest. This was a very good book. I learned a lot from this book when I was researching this one chapter of mine. I think I'll read it again. That's how good it was. I also think I inherited this from my older sister, Leanne. Which, I don't know, everything I got from her is special. When someone dies too soon, you know. I will say I have gotten rid of things related to her life. Like, we had all these letters between her and her old boyfriend. What am I going to do with this crap? Gave it to my daughter Anna, and I was like, make some art with it or something. If you want them. Or whatever. We don't have to. Like, my parents saved so much art from her when she was a little kid. I'm like, am I saddled with this the rest of my life? Because I was around when things were given and divvied up. What books I'll take. She kind of gave me many of my interests. Pointed me toward the things I've been to, place, the West. Those are big themes of my work. Yeah. Those are big themes in my work. Place in the West. Unbroken Paths of the American West, yeah. Whoa, that's a challenge too. A lot of people would like to not admit that. It's just like there are wagon wheels everywhere. To study the Southwest, or the West, I feel like particularly the Southwest, but The Southwest is like the westiest west. I don't know, it kind of feels like that to me. Squirrel, you're so cute. It's so hilarious that you just lie like that. So cute. Yeah, it's a good one. Sounds like it would have similar themes to Justin St. Germain's Son of a Gun. Maybe those two would be interesting to pair together. That's a memoir, but because he talks about modern day violence in the context of a history of violence. In Tombstone, Arizona. Yeah, that'd be a great pairing. I'm not going to get that out though. Yeah, recommended. I think it's considered a classic. Scholars of the West. I once met a unique sort of snob at the time who, anytime I mentioned a book I'd read on the West or something, he would tell me they were outdated. I was like, you're outdated. Oh, this book really kind of affected me. After I read this, I was like, I have to do a river trip. What the heck, young self? That's how a book like this affected my young self. Bernard DeVoto, I could use some taping. A nice abridgment. I've never read the unabridged. There are many volumes. Huge. But, yeah, they are kind of a national literary treasure. They're a portrait of North America up close and early. And, you know, if you can be an adult and look at the expedition and all its nuance, you can't deny its historic import. Better for us. Though it is also good to read books like Lewis and Clark Through Indian Eyes in addition to this. Like, there was a lot of Lewis and Clark stuff over here. I don't think that should be in Southwest. I have 2 copies of Lewis and Clark Through Indian Eyes. Because I love sharing. Okay. You're so cute, Squirrel. Anyone want to sponsor Squirrel? Cat food company or something? Are you ethical? She could do ads. She's cute in person too. Sits in cute ways, hangs out in cute ways. Truly a marvel. This one was also very cute. She's also made of antimatter. I think I gotta take Lewis and Clark out of the Southwest books. From in with the general nonfiction. Squirrel. Hilarious. Not Lewis. I almost called Prisma Lewis. Lewis is my old black cat. 20 years I had that cat. But to be worthy of the name of Lewis, you must not cloud the chair. Like you're spiraling again. It's 2025. You're not in Nam. And last but not least, from the Southwest section, John Muir. Super interesting, influential figure. Saved a lot of national parks. Wrote some great stuff. Was a great, interesting figure. Would fill an overcoat's pockets with dry crusts of bread and head into the mountains to just live on that. Was a real inspirational figure to me at times in my life. Mountains of California. So yeah, is it California? Do they belong in the Southwest section? Apparently. Maybe this is some kind of broad West section. But there's a lot of Intermountain West stuff that's not in this section. It's just in nonfiction, so I don't know. It's a mess. Whatever. I'll gradually refine it slowly over time. Eventually it will become so precise it will gain sentience. I want to organize this right now. I want to go lie down and watch Community, because season 3 is now on Tubi. I could write. I would say these are mostly Four Corners, but there's an Idaho-centric book. There's, I don't know. There's more Meriwether Lewis. Think about this. I decided I'm going to use this shelf here. I've never used that bottom one, aside from putting a brick on it. A little globe. I should add Intermountain West books like Lewis and Clark stuff over here. Okay. The Chinese in America, that's very much a Western book, but it's also more general. All nuclear books are kind of about the West. 3 more. 2 copies of Lewis and Clark 3 Indian Eyes. Add that to. Those are very cool. That's a good book. Women's Balkan Chorus. Sadzansky Men's Chorus. Not a chorus. Unitarian Church, 1998. Whoa. Churchgoer would probably appreciate this ephemera. And they already keep great records. I have a copy. Wild Things and Books. I think I read this a couple times. I think I listened to it once and read it once. Undaunted Courage. You know, when you live in the West, you should know a little something about the history of it, I think. Why not? Like, we take our modern lives for granted. All right. Southwestern books. Notably exclude New Mexico books because there's 2 cases of those. See, that's when the channel will die or completely become something else. The world will say, no, you can't talk about New Mexico for that long. We shan't have it. We shan't. I like that. I like this all right. Do you want to take that one back? The new Southwest section. That globe actually performs a function stopping books from falling. Got a little more Lewis and Clark. Oh, there's a gap there. I could put something. This is about Chocolate Canyon. This should actually be in the New Mexico section, probably. Maybe it's not just about Chocolate Canyon. A chapter on the Yucatan. Crazy Horse was a Western chief, right? Plains. That's alright. One of these days I'm going to do a video where I just finesse the whole collection, where I just walk around, like, straightening books, switching them around, taping this or that. There'll be a lot of little adjustments to make where I took books out of the nonfiction section to go over here. I don't know. I love when a place is full of books, honestly. There's this great bookstore in Albuquerque, Downtown Books. It just feels like an apartment where every surface has been lined with bookcases. And areas have been made between things, too. There's 74 books in this little Southwestern section. Interesting. Doubles, 2 of the Gila. That looks awesome. 2 of Lewis and Clark 3 Indian Eyes, but that's an essential resource. I could see giving that to a fellow scholar. You know, it's all fractal. Study one place, and eventually you'll be studying everything. It's all connected. This has been all of Mike's books about the Southwest. He looked at them all. Imagine I had just cornered you at a party, and the several videos in which I look at all these books. I just told you about them all. Here's how bad the party is. It was actually a relief from the previous person that you were talking to. It was Sarah Palin, or something like that. She was all hopped up on meth. This channel does perform a function for me. It helps me know what I own. I forget about things. Oh yeah, this one. I think the collection is a unique collection, and I like it. I feel like it's a kind of a work that I craft and think about on its own. Thinking about how it's presented. All right, so that's the end of all the books in this half of the room. Anyone watch the antique books videos? Those are some of my favorites. With sci-fi. Science. Like Glen Canyon. Nonfiction. I guess I have held on to quite a few books despite having purged the collection down from a much bigger collection. And way back in the history of this channel, I looked at these single author shelves. That's all Dostoevsky there. It's still one of the most popular videos, I guess. Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, James Agee, P.G. Wodehouse, Shakespeare. This is all art crit, lit crit, film crit. That was early on too. I can still see a few videos I could do in this room, like the books on the wall, on display, etc. There's a bunch of DVDs. I wonder what that would do to the likes. Might be interesting to see. We'll see, because I want to spend a little more time with, make sure I'm done with this section before I move on to the New Mexico books over there. Kids' books here and in a closet back there. All lined up along the top, one shelf in the closet. The very last one will be this very curated case, the literary paperback section, which I'm trying to read all of over a few years. And it's been a really worthwhile project, but I've never reviewed the whole shelves. Because why would anyone do anything like this channel? It's weird. Yeah, the compulsion drives me forward. Southwestern books, you know. Love them, hate them, love to hate them. Call in. What's your opinion? My opinion is, oh, hey, you live in the Southwest. Don't be a moron. Know something about it. Care about where you live, you know. Be invested. You meet clods who are just checked out. But then I'm surprised by people all the time. A lot of people are smart in their ways. Brick is from the Tonke Brick Factory at the north end of the Sandias. Old Tonke Pueblo. They just ground up civilization indiscriminately to make those bricks. Now the bricks are themselves historic. Kind of old. I like this section now more. It's more robust. And yeah, that one area is hard to read, but so what? Shelves should have books on them. Basically, the movie Fern Gully. A balance has been restored. The empty has been filled. Pretty sure this is what Nostradamus in the Bible were talking about. 2 finds. All right, everybody, good night.